Website at lycopeneskincare.com. That's lycopene, Lycopene, skincare.com. And let lycopene lead your skin on the path to beauty.
Welcome, sports fans, to the 5th Annual City Unification Cup Soccer Fest being held at Central Broward Regional Park and Stadium. Broward County Events is promoting prizes and giveaways from now till December 20th, complete with soccer games and beauty pageants and concerts. For ticket information, call 954-934-5293 or visit the website unificationcup.com and come out and root for your team on a day full of events and fun. 954-934-5093. Call today. Do you know of anyone who lives with pain or has high blood pressure, diabetes, or asthma? Do seizures or any other types of illness run in the family? Then this message could be very important to you. Rain International introduces Soul, a new energized drink that revitalizes and detoxifies naturally. Soul offers you the opportunity to feel better and get help with many illnesses that may have overtaken your body. Visit their website at myrainlife.com/God blessings and get all the information you need to let Rain Solution heal your soul. If you want to talk to Soul, call 954-696-8330 and begin your steps to better health. Rain International also has job opportunities that can change your life in 7 different categories. Call today and get a healthy body, a healthy mind, and create a healthy bank account. 954-696-8330. Call today and let's make it rain.
If you suffer from excruciating back pain, do not have surgery. Call Dr. Fernando Ranella, MD, and ask him about the new ozone therapy and how it can eliminate your back pain once and for all. End your suffering today. Call Dr. Fernando Ranella, the Center for Back Pain Management, 561-819-6325. That's 561-819-6325 or injectpainaway.com.
Talk health. Talk wealth. Talk politics. Talk 1470. WNN.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to our show. You're listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections, a place to learn about and celebrate creative arts therapy. Each week, we'll explore new ways that music, art, and dance can reach, connect with, and help individuals of all stages of health and wellness. Hi, I'm Bree Bynan, a board-certified music therapist and the managing partner for the Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute. Tune in as I interview professionals from healthcare and educational backgrounds on the impact of the creative arts. If you prefer to watch our live video stream, simply visit www.pbmti.com. Hello, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are listening to and watching Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. I'm your host, Bree Bynan, a board-certified music therapist and neurologic music therapist with the Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute. I'm so excited for our show tonight. We are going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart, as I've mentioned several weeks on this show, using music to help inspire, connect, comfort, and bring joy to seniors who are living outside of their home in possibly a new environment, an unfamiliar environment. We're going to be talking to a couple different experts tonight about how music and the properties of music can help these individuals, can help normalize their experience, can help bring them comfort. We're going to be talking to another board-certified music therapist, Joe Kim, who works with us at Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute, and Doug Shannon, who has just started a brand new program locally in our area called the Ultimate Music Game Show. And we're going to be talking to him about his program, all the really neat things that he's doing to use recorded music, facts, and trivia to engage seniors. So before we talk to our guests tonight, I want to just share a little bit about from my personal and professional background and the work that I've done throughout the years working with seniors in particular. So throughout the last 7 years, I've worked in this area in skilled nursing facilities, assisted living facilities, independent living facilities in different situations, whether it is rehabilitative care, hospice care, or just programs for wellness. And there is one common thread that can bring comfort and joy, as we mentioned, to individuals regardless of where they're at in their stages of illness or wellness, and that is music. So I think that, music therapists and others that use music professionally or in their volunteer life we're really lucky that we've fallen into this life where we can use music to help others when there's so many things that they aren't getting in their lives that are what they're used to. Okay, so if you're living in a new place, this isn't your home, maybe you don't recognize those around you, you're not deciding when you go to meals anymore, you're not deciding when you're getting up and getting dressed anymore, or what activities you're going to. That can be really challenging. So one of the things that I know we're going to talk to Joe about today, and things that I really like to focus on in my music therapy sessions, is using music and live music making to give some control and choice making back to individuals, because that's really something that is taken from them when they move into a new place. While there are many, many opportunities for them to engage and to connect with others and with wonderful staff and caregivers and friends to make, it can be a very difficult adjustment. And so we are very happy that we can use music to help that transition along. There are many ways that different facilities do bring music to these individuals, whether it is a volunteer coming in to play the guitar or the piano. Sometimes even residents will play instruments that they've played throughout their lives and want to share their talent with other residents. It's a wonderful thing. They'll hire professional entertainers to come in and do programs. There's a music and memory program, the iPod Project. That's something that's been growing. That is a training program that trains caregivers to be able to make personalized iPods for individuals. So that's a new program. Doug is going to talk about his program, how he kind of fuses together trivia, brain games, music into a program for seniors. And then obviously, as you hear a lot about in our show, working with board-certified music therapists. So we understand that there might not always be a budget or an opportunity for a music therapist, certainly not to have one necessarily all hours of the day when your individuals are there. So we do try to encourage that when we're not able to be there, staff and caregivers, family members, different safe, comforting ways to use music with individuals. So throughout the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about some considerations to think about. If you are thinking about bringing more music to your loved one or to someone you work with, things to consider. One of them being the emotional content of music. So on Veterans Day, we talked about what's the right song to play for veterans. There really is not one answer to that. Each veteran is an individual, just like every person is an individual. So while patriotic music may bring a great source of pride and comfort to one veteran, it may be very triggering to another. So knowing that about your family member, your loved one, your client, what music is going to be bring them the most comfort without triggering any negative emotions. Music is so unique in that it is the only stimulus that lights up the entire brain. It's activating our speech centers, it's activating our emotions, it's activating everything in our brain, decreasing our pain stimulus, decreasing our anxiety. Just as it has the power to do all those positive things, it's also able to negatively trigger some of these things as well because of the power that music has. So want to be considerate about that when having music with individuals. Also being sensitive to sound. We'll talk to Joe a little bit about the work that he does in group settings and individuals. And one of the considerations that we have to have is what instruments are you going to be using with individuals? Is it something they can comfortably grasp? Does it need to be altered in a way to make it a successful situation for them? So that if you're asking them to play a drum, are they able to hold a mallet? Is it more comfortable for them to use their hands? Do they have use of their hands? Is that a comfortable thing for them to do? Also, sound. You may hand someone egg shakers and maybe they can't hear it. So really that's kind of an unfulfilling way for them to participate in the group if they don't realize the impact that they're having rhythmically. So maybe something like bells might be a better option. It's just about knowing all of our clients, our loved ones, our family members individually, what is going to best reach them and what's going to set them up for success. That is key. You hear me say it time and time again. What is going to set this situation up for success so it's not going to be over or understimulating for someone, because we are the professionals going in to make sure that you are getting the most out of this situation, whether that means socialization, emotional response, communication, physical comfort. We want to make sure that we're bringing the music to that individual in a situation that might be scary, unfamiliar, maybe threatening, even if they aren't comfortable where they are quite yet. How can music help that environment? And that's what we really have been charged with as music therapists that work in senior care, which I think is an excellent a gift, really, to be able to do that. Not only working with the seniors in this situation, but also we're going to talk about the benefits to family members. When we're using music to help someone communicate, it really is the family members that are also benefiting from this. We hear time and time again those who say either my mom is living with Alzheimer's, she is not remembering what she ate for lunch today, or what, the names of all her children or grandchildren are. But when I came into that session and I saw her singing those songs that I know are meaningful to her and my father when they started, dating back in the 40s or whatever that is, I saw that part of my mom back, and it can be extremely comforting and be a great moment for that loved one as well. Maybe even if there's not a memory disorder linked, but just my dad's been really depressed. I had this actually in a session happen this week. A gentleman came in, towel over his head, not communicating. And I thought, I don't think he really wanted to be in this group. He looks like he didn't want to be around people. So I kind of checked in with him, made sure everything was okay. Started going through the music, trying to find out what his preference was. Now, as we were going on, he was talking more, not necessarily sharing in the music, but talking more. Really sparked a lot of conversation in the group, which was really interesting. And at the end, he said, "You brought us to life with the music." I was not expecting that. I was thinking that maybe he wanted to be alone, but really he was feeling depressed and isolated, and the music helped bring him out of that to share with others around him. We ended up staying together after the group had ended and talking about a lot of Broadway musicals that he liked and kind of playing them on the YouTube, because this was something that I was not going to really be able to emulate. These were memories of his going to watch shows on Broadway. So there's time and a place for recorded music, absolutely, in sessions as well, even if you are a trained musician. A lot of different things to explore on this topic. Hopefully some good tips for anyone listening out there who's working in senior care. Maybe you're not working with a music therapist, or you're looking at other options for entertainment or other ways to engage your seniors. I hope that you learn from us tonight. As always, please do connect with us on Twitter, PBMTI, or Facebook, Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute. Any questions you have, please let us know. We love to hear from you. We're going to cut to commercial now. When we come back, you're going to hear from Joe Kim, board-certified music therapist from the Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute. Thank you. The Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute is a professional music therapy practice serving medical, community, and educational settings throughout Southeast Florida. With our experienced team of 11 board-certified music therapists, we use music and research-based therapeutic interventions to help individuals of all ages and abilities reach their goals and increase their quality of life. For more information on our services and programs, please visit our website at pbmti.com. Engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or call us at 561-747-9944. You are listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. If you'd like to join the conversation, the toll-free number is 565 1470. Now back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You are listening to and watching the Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. We are talking about music and the benefits that it can have when brought into senior living facilities. And our first guest tonight is our very own from PBMTI, Joseph Kim. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Joe is the newest member of our team. He is doing some sessions in the field working with seniors, but also brought on to help us do some business development down in Broward County. So if you are watching tonight and you have a facility that you work with or you have a loved one down in Broward County, Joe is your guy to talk to about how we can meet your needs, bringing a music therapy program to you. So, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got interested in music therapy, came into this field?
Sure, that's actually kind of a long story. It took me about 10 years to graduate college, but that's only because the first 6 years I really didn't know what I wanted to do until I heard about music therapy. I didn't even know it was a profession. I didn't know it was a field of study. So at the time I was living in Phoenix, and I was actually working on my pre-med degree at University of Arizona in Tucson, and life just brought me up to Phoenix, and I met a friend who was studying music at ASU, and she said, have you heard of, music therapy? And I didn't. I did my research. I went to the school and met the professors and got to talk to some of the students and see what that was all about. I'm always wanted to study music. I always wanted to be a musician, so decided to go for it. I studied music therapy at Arizona State, graduated back in 2012, did my internship in New York with a hospice organization up there, and that brought me down here to work for a hospice organization here in Broward. And that, after a year of that, took me to California, where I did another year of music therapy and hospice. That brought me back to Florida, back here for to work for the same company as a hospice music therapist. So, yeah.
Very cool. So, it sounds like hospice has kind of had been your home for a while for music therapy. Have you worked in other settings?
I have not extensively anyway. I've dabbled in a few things here and there. Mostly focused. If I wasn't focusing on hospice, I was working with children with bereavement. I've been working with adults who have experienced a loss of a parent, a loss of a child. So if it wasn't on the terminal side of things with patients, and I was working with people after the fact, working on bereavement and stuff like that. In school, of course, as a music therapy student, you have to do your practicums or your preclinicals. So in that sense, I did, dabble a bit in psychiatrics and memory units and children, stuff like that. So, but mostly hospice, yes.
And working with that experience in bereavement probably, I imagine, lends itself to working in senior living facilities, because a lot of times individuals are coping with their own losses.
Sure.
And sometimes it's, as concrete as losing a spouse or a family member, but also dealing with that loss of their independence a little bit. And as we mentioned in the beginning, shifting with that change, that transition. So I'm sure some techniques that you used in those settings apply themselves to working with seniors as well.
Absolutely. And actually, when we talk about treating the patients who are receiving music therapy, there's a gamut of different interventions that we use to address specific, problems. And loss of independence is definitely one of those, because when you're talking about a patient or a family member who has just recently moved into senior residence, there's a lot of losses that they're experiencing. Loss from being able to take a shower in their own bathrooms, the loss of being able to garden, in their backyard, or, the loss of being able to drive, to the grocery store and back. And so, absolutely, we're not just dealing with physical and cognitive issues, but also we want to treat the residents emotionally and spiritually, and that's definitely one of the biggest ones that we work with.
That's wonderful. So you're starting to talk about some of the domains that we deal with, and treating the whole person, looking at the whole person. Why do you think that music therapy is such a good medium for addressing that in senior care?
Well, as for anybody, music is a huge part of life. Music is essential. It's part of who we are. Our heartbeat is, it's rhythmic, it's music. And so I do believe that music is such a huge part of everyone's life that you were talking about earlier how music affects the entire brain. Well, as a music therapist, we're trained and, to understand and to believe that music not only affects the brain, but it affects the body. It affects your soul. It affects your heart. It affects your memory. So definitely with treating the whole person, music can be used to facilitate a lot of different activities, interventions that maybe medicine can't reach, maybe physical therapy can't reach, maybe occupational therapy wouldn't be able to reach. So when you look at music therapy as a whole, you've got singing, you've got movement, you've got memory recall, you're doing breathing. It's helping regulate blood pressure and your heart rate and all that. So definitely it's just one of those mediums that you look at other maybe not so much holistic but medical mediums and ways of being able to treat a person, and music really I feel touches on every part of that.
I'm glad you talked about all those different ways, because I think that when we kind of get stuck in defending our field, just because simply there's not a lot of knowledge about it, and about the findings of it and where it's based. So we get kind of focused on talking about the research and the physical things, and the neurologic things. But it's just as important to recognize that music is good for the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that smile, it comes from the soul. It's good for us. It's good for us to smile and to communicate and connect with one another. And maybe that's not as quantitative, but certainly holds a lot of value. So I know, I think I speak for both of us, just what a pleasure it is to, when we work with individuals in senior care that really value how special that is. It's wonderful to be able to see someone's increased, tolerance to activity when they're doing movement, things like that. But also, how are they feeling? And at the end of the day, sometimes music is just fun. What a wonderful thing that is.
Right. And with my experience in hospice care, and you've had this experience yourself, I'm sure, a lot of what we do, the results aren't very qualitative. They're more, or I'm sorry, they aren't quantitative, but they are qualitative.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at, what is their affect like?
Mm-hmm.
Are they smiling? Did the grimacing in their face go away? Are their hands unclenched? Are they feeling more relaxed? And so when we do our documentation, when we do our observations, we're really not just looking at the monitors and what is their blood pressure. We're not monitoring these things as we're doing our music therapy, but really it's about, how are we reaching them on an emotional level, on a mental level, on a personal level, really. And so, yeah, and I feel like that really does apply in senior settings. I mean, we're talking about these residents who don't live at home anymore, who don't get to see their families anymore. So when a music therapist comes in and walks into the room, you're really bringing an element of something different and something that reaches not just their physical needs but also their emotional needs. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing.
I agree. We've talked broadly about the different things music can address. I wonder if you would speak a little bit more specifically about just examples of, in both in group and individual setting in a senior care, whether it's skilled nursing or assisted living. What are some of the goals that you might be addressing, and how would you use music to do that?
Well, we talked about addressing that socialization for the patient or for the resident. A lot of the residents might not see the outside of their rooms because they might be bedbound or they might be wheelchair bound. So when we get together in groups and in group settings to do music therapy, and you do a sing-along or you do movement exercises, you have these residents are coming into a space where other residents are, where the staff will, most of the staff will participate and sit there with you. And one of the great, one of the things that music really does is it facilitates this connection between people. When you're singing a song that you haven't heard for 50 years and you look at the person next to you and you see that they're singing the same song, it automatically creates that connection. Another thing that we like to do in music therapy settings, in the group settings, is movement. So exercise and getting them to stretch. A lot of these patients aren't able to walk, or they might not be as active as they used to be when they were younger. So when you're bringing in instruments and drums and they're playing it and you're having them throwing them up in the air, or, low down to your feet, you're getting them to make movements that they normally wouldn't make day to day. And that promotes blood circulation. It's promoting exercise and movement. And music, it's a natural facilitator of movement, because when you hear a song that's upbeat, you just want to kind of, sway side to side, or you want to tap your toes and snap your fingers. And so it's a really it's a natural and easy tool to get those residents moving. And so yeah, that's one of the great ones. Another goal that you could address with music in these kind of settings is facilitating verbalizations, memory recall, getting them to exercise their brains and their cognitive skills. So, and we'll do this later, but I'm going to play a song later where it illustrates a good way of getting residents and these seniors to verbalize. And it's in a way that it's fun. It's in a way that it's easy. It's with songs that are familiar. And once you get them to start singing and start verbalizing and vocalizing, you'll notice that towards the end of the session, they're all singing. And so it's really great. Yeah.
It's like a smile. It's contagious.
Yes,
You
exactly.
can't sit in a room and everyone's singing and having fun and not allow yourself to have fun,
Right.
and connect in that way. I use this example a lot when talking about using music for movement. It is a natural facilitator, and oftentimes I'll make that connection about how many of you, even when you were living at home, would go walking or do any kind of exercise and have music playing. We're no strangers to the fact of using music for ourselves. Sometimes doing it formally in a music therapy session seems a little different or new, but the idea of music helping us move, I do marching and stretching to Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree. And I say, if I just walked into a room and said, all right, we're going to march for the count of 32 beats in silence, I wouldn't do that. Who would
Right.
do that? But when you're marching okay, and we're going to step on the downbeat and move together, people are marching in ways that they're not moving otherwise, which is really neat to see. So you mentioned a little bit about staff involvement when the aides or staff at facility are getting kind of sitting in the circle, getting involved. What benefits do you see it having to staff as well as the residents?
Well, one of the biggest benefits is, when you walk into a facility, you notice that they're usually running around taking care of the residents, escorting them to the bathrooms and bringing them back and getting them to the next activities or getting them to their rooms. And it's a very impersonal. I feel it's a very impersonal interaction that they're having with the residents when they're just going from one job to another. But when the music therapist walks into the group and does a session and invites the staff to come and sit, it provides them, not only the residents, but also the staff, an opportunity to step outside of that zone, to step out of their roles as an aide, as a nurse, and to be able to just enjoy the music and to participate and to also see the residents in a state that maybe they don't get to see them in all the time. So when you have your residents who are now singing along and enjoying themselves and smiling and not complaining about this or that, the aides get to have a little bit of a respite. They get to have a little bit of a break. And not only that, but they also get to see a side of, their residents that they normally wouldn't get to see. So that's one of really the biggest benefits of having music therapy and having that opportunity for the staff to be able to just stop and really recognize the residents, not just as another resident, but as a person. And, and I think that's how a really great way of staff being able to develop that rapport and that relationship with the residents.
Yeah, I love that. When you're talking to someone, you're going to be doing some business development in your new role, and different facilities have different needs, and everybody loves the idea of music. How would you make the distinction in our last couple minutes here before we go to break to identify if someone is truly looking for a music therapy program versus an entertainment program?
Well, that's a loaded question, but really briefly, with entertainment, I think it's great to get that extra stimulus to the residents and to the groups and to the facilities. But with music therapy, you're signing on to something that's going to be routine, something that's going to be monitored. So you're watching, how are these residents benefiting from the music therapy? What is it that I can address? What are the certain needs that I can address of these residents? And PBMTI, we usually try to keep the groups to about an average of 15 people. So it's fairly easy to be able to monitor, the progress of these groups. And as trained music therapists, you know that we are trained to be able to observe the differences that are occurring with each week. And when we're able to document that and report that back to the administrators of facilities, they get to see on paper, what the benefits are and what they're doing, and really the results and the outcomes of this wonderful service. So.
Absolutely, and both can work so well together,
Right.
know. Certainly we enjoy music for entertainment in our lives as well.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe, for being on.
Thank
Joe's
you.
going to stick around. We're going to go to a quick commercial break and then talk with Doug Shannon. Thank you so much.
Mom's fall was a wake-up call. We knew she needed help, but we also knew she'd never leave her home.
With jobs and kids, we can't always be there. We weren't sure who to trust to help around the house and make sure she takes her medications.
We did our research and found our answer, Bright Star Care. Their home care teams are led by registered nurses with help available 24/7.
Thanks to Bright Star Care, Mom can stay where she wants to be, at home.
For a standard of care that raises the bar, call 844 for Bright Star.
The Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute is a professional music therapy practice serving medical, community, and educational settings throughout Southeast Florida. With our experienced team of 11 board-certified music therapists, we use music and research-based therapeutic interventions to help individuals of all ages and abilities reach their goals and increase their quality of life. For more information on our services and programs, please visit our website at pbmti.com. Engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or call us at 561-747-9944. You are listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. If you'd like to join the conversation, the toll-free number is 888-565-1470. Now back to the show. Hello, thank you for joining us. You are listening to and watching Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. I'm your host, Bree Bynan. We just talked to Joe Kim, a board-certified music therapist with PBMTI, specifically about how music therapy can benefit those living in senior living communities. We're going to be talking to next Doug Shannon, the creator of the Ultimate Music Game Show. Hi, Doug.
Hello, Bree. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Doug, you, actually, I kind of forget how we had gotten connected. I know, remind me, actually.
Well, if I recall correctly, well, that's a great question.
I know. Sorry, that one's off the script.
I think that I was just surfing the net, and I ran up against, your institute and put a call into you because I said, I'd like to learn more about what it is that you do. You had contacted me, and then we chatted and so forth, and here we are.
And here we are. Well, that's wonderful, and I'm so glad you did reach out. Can you talk to us a little bit about your background? I know it's pretty varied, and kind of how it led you to bringing music into the seniors.
Sure. When I was born back in 1950, no, I'm kidding. I'm 63 years of age. I'm a senior citizen, and backtracking just a little bit, I was a radio disc jockey for a number of years. Actually, while I was in college, and when I got out of college, I was doing that. And I was also working in nightclubs. And so I would MC and do every type of game imaginable. And I really fell in love with that. So I had a career in working in radio as well as working in nightclubs. But also what I was doing is that I worked as a professor of communication. I worked at Cuyahoga Community College, and I retired from the school just a little over a year ago. And so I was working with a lot of the principals in teaching as well as in how I worked with audiences. So that's pretty much it. I was a college professor, and I just worked as an MC, facilitating different types of games and interests with audiences for, really 40 years. And I just moved down here a little over a year ago. I'm going to be married January 1st, and my fiance, Gail, hello, how are you? We moved down here a little over a year ago, and I decided, I thought, well, geez, maybe I'd like to do something. And quite honestly, at my age, at 63, I thought, well, why don't I work with seniors? And so that's how everything started.
Very cool. You left out in your bio that you're also an author, which I just learned. Off the Record, The Handbook to Knowledge, Money, and Success. Where did this come into your journey?
Well, I'll tell you what. Boy, that's a loaded question. That, as Joe had responded to one of yours, I wrote that. I started writing that book when I was 24, and it was actually published. Probably when I was about 29 or 30. But the book is about the nightclub industry, but it really heavily gets into music, but how disc jockeys or MCs work with audiences. And so the book did very well. I mean, it's out of print now. I do have copies, as I gave one to you.
Yes, thank you.
But in its day, it sold all over the world, and was a DJ, MC, nightclub handbook that served people very well. And I still get calls and so forth in relation to it, and people found it to be very useful. And really, the principles that are in the book are still. In fact, matter of fact, we were talking about music licensing agreements a little before, just before the show began, and I go, oh my goodness. I go, it's in the book. There's ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. So anyways, again, that's like another lifetime, but it's very close to me, and I love it.
It's a whole other interview.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Well,
yes.
very cool. Thank you so much for bringing that today. So fast forward to now. What is the Ultimate Music Game Show? How did you come up with it? And what does it mean? What do you
Well, the Ultimate Music Game Show is basically this. I play music, it is a game, and there is a show. And the show is myself facilitating, working with the audience. So the audience is part of the show. So that's how I came up with the Ultimate Music Game Show. Now, with that, I wanted to go ahead and have many different types of activities. So what I do is that I do Name That Tune, and also Let's Make a Deal, and I do little stories, little snippets about songs and artists, and I relate that to trivia questions. And it's very entertaining, and people just they love the story. So ultimately, how it is that I work with this is that if someone doesn't, name that tune or whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to eventually give them the answer if, in fact, the audience doesn't get it, because I try to make it very challenging. Now, the other thing involved with this game is that I do it with a bingo-style format. And so it can be referred to as a music bingo game show, but because there's so much involved, I call it the Ultimate Music Game Show.
Very neat. And what do you think about how your past as a college professor, do you use any of those skills, do you think, while you're doing the music game show?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you. I really think that having served as a college professor really adds to my facilitating this game. And so, I refer to myself as a senior entertainer, but really I'm kind of like a senior facilitator. So to answer your question, very simply, one of the ways in which I taught was not to spoon feed. Now, if there's any college professors, high school teachers out there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Spoon feeding is just giving someone the answer and so be it, and they write it down and they commit it to memory, and then they put it back on a test. Well, there's a lot of research on that as to whether or not someone really learns something. So that's how I taught when I first started teaching, which was back in 1985. And then around the early 90s, I decided to use what is known as the Socratic method of questioning. And it goes back to Socrates, 2,500 years ago, great guy. And he basically stood on street corners and questioned people and wanted them to inquire about different things. Well, we know the history about Socrates because he ended up drinking the hemlock, because inquiring was something that man should not do. Well, I started to use that technique. So I would pose questions to my students and then push them and prod them in certain directions without them really knowing that I was doing that. And then they would come up with the answers, and then they would actually be telling me exactly what I was hoping they were at a position where they would arrive at. And so I started to use that, and I really worked on developing that. And I used the same thing in my game. So what I'm always trying to do is to challenge the thought process of the audience. And what it is that I've learned is that we as human beings are very intuitive about having inquiring minds. When we don't understand something, if it's important to us, we want to find it out. And so when I pose different questions about a certain artist or about a particular song, and I do this in multiple layers, it becomes very challenging. So what happens is that it has an inquiring nature to it that is also very entertaining. So that's what I really bring to the table as a college professor, to the Ultimate Music Game Show. And it really becomes very entertaining, as well as being a brain exercise for the audience.
That's wonderful. And I was actually going to ask you next, if you don't mind expanding on that a little bit. We talked about with Joe how fortunate we are that our mode of communication happens to be through music, and that it very nature is that is entertaining, that it's fun. What other benefits are you seeing going on in these groups?
Well, that's just it. I could really relate to what both of you were talking about before as I was sitting here. And, people have belted out, while we're doing the game. The guy, I remember this even back a few weeks ago, this is the music of my life. And, there's nothing more exciting than that. And I will tell you, I've worked, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I started to work with audiences. So I've worked with a large different demographic all through the years. I've never enjoyed working with any audience more than with seniors. So the bottom line is that I think when you engage the people with a brain exercise and it becomes, inquiring to them, it becomes very exciting. So some of the things that, Joe was talking about that I could really identify with were, maybe people clapping, they're moving their arms or whatever the case may be. I mean, it's not unusual for people to sing at, when we do the Ultimate Music Game Show, clap. And often, people will get up and dance. And the other interesting thing that Joe had mentioned is that, sometimes they'll just be chair dancing. So they're just moving, and you can see that their body is undulating. Now, as both of you know, I'm not a music therapist. I don't claim to be. But when I observe all of those things, as I did as a college professor, I found it very interesting and fascinating because you know that you're connecting with the people. And so when people leave, they'll often come up to me, shake my hand, give me a hug, tell me how happy they are or whatever the case may be, and there's nothing better than that.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you get to see those responses and to be a part of that energy is so exciting. I think that's what brings many of us to the field and wanting to study it and learn more, is because we observe that the way that music is just tapping into something that nothing else is. And we just want to learn more. Why is it? And some of those questions are unanswered still. A lot of that, we have a lot of research that shows us why music and rhythm affects us so much, but also it's just part of who we are as human, like Joe said. And going back to Aristotle and Plato and as far back as we're going, music has always been one of the core foundations that you are taught to pass on to your children and to teach. It's amazing. Yeah. What types of venues would you recommend for a program like this? What setting are you promoting it to?
Well, it's really interesting. Now, as far as working with seniors, it's still, relatively new for me. I've been doing this now for, about 4 or 5 months. And what I am learning are there are different ways in which I can facilitate the game. In other words, I can do it where it's just like solely entertaining without much of a brain exercise. And then I can also do it so that I do more of a brain exercise. Now, mind you, that's still entertaining. So when I go to a memory care facility, which is places where I do go, I slow the game down, and I'll repeat the question more than once or twice or whatever the case may be. So I'll play with them, much more. Whereas when I'm working at a facility that is maybe independent living, well, it's a little bit more of a fast game. And when I say fast, it's not like, really rushing or anything like that, but it's going at a faster tempo than at a memory care. So, yes, memory care, assisted living, independent living, they're all different communities where I do this. By the same token, excuse me, I also, do it at some senior community centers. I'll be coming up later in December. I'll be at the Skolnick Center for the city of Pompano Beach, and I'll also be at the Northeast Focal Point Senior Center. That'll be December 18th. So, it's just a wide variety of different facilities in which, I can actually facilitate this game.
And when you're at these community centers, is the public welcome? So if anyone listening to it, are they welcome to come join and check out what it is that you do?
Yes. For instance, on December 16th at the Skolnick Center, that will be open to the public. Doors will open at 6 o'clock, and I will start the game at 6:30, and we'll be there for an hour and a half. So it's really engaging, and we always end with grand prizes, and that's when I actually do the Let's Make a Deal portion. So that's kind of like the icing on the cake. And then again, at the Northeast Focal Point Senior Center, that is on Friday, December 18th, and quite honestly, I'm pretty certain it starts at 10 o'clock. It might be 10:30, but I believe it's 10.
I remember that because I think Joe and I are going to try to come to that one. I think it's 10 o'clock.
Great.
Yeah, wonderful. How can people get in touch with you or learn more about your program?
Well, they certainly can give me a call. They can call me direct on my cell phone at 216-372-0168. That's 216-372-0168. Or they can locate my website, which is using the acronyms of the Ultimate Music Game Show. It's TUMGS.com. So pretty much, that's
Wonderful.
it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about your program. We're going to hear from both Doug and Joe after the break. We're going to be sharing some examples of what both of them do in the field. We will look forward to sharing that with you after this commercial. The Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute is a professional music therapy practice serving medical, community, and educational settings throughout Southeast Florida. With our experienced team of 11 board-certified music therapists, we use music and research-based therapeutic interventions to help individuals of all ages and abilities reach their goals and increase their quality of life. For more information on our services and programs, please visit our website at pbmti.com. Engage with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or call us at 561-747-9944. You are listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. If you'd like to join the conversation, the toll-free number is 888-565-1470. Now back to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. You are listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. I am your host, Bree Bynan. I have with me tonight Joe Kim, board-certified music therapist with the Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute, and Doug Shannon, who is creator of the Ultimate Music Game Show. We've so enjoyed learning about both of their programs, what they offer specifically in senior living facilities. So now we're going to get to have some fun, as we always do at the end of our show. But before we get into music sharing, Doug, you were sharing something really special during the break. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us what you think the best part of your job is.
Boy, I like how you phrase that. At the very end of a show, I always thank the people for contributing to making my day plentiful and, to my enjoyment. And out of all the audiences that I've worked with, through the years, as I mentioned earlier, that I've never had more enjoyment and more of a gratifying role. But I have an unbounded amount of energy when I do this that I must say, although I've experienced that here and there at times through my career, never like this. And it's not nervous energy. I have so much energy that it's almost like a spiritual experience, to be honest with you. And I think at times that because of that, I get more out of it than maybe even the audience, because it's such a pleasure to be able to facilitate that type of a game with the seniors.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's a wonderful feeling. I often talk about that, getting that energy back. I have to say, sorry, Joe, but something you shared from one of your first groups you did with us is, he said, I just felt so energetic. I was jumping up and down that one of the residents said, well, you're not going to need Weight Watchers. And that about sums it up. That's true. It just energizes us, and it just kind of, it lifts our spirits as well. And, you know, again, how lucky are we to be in a job where we don't have to fake that? That just comes from the work that we're doing, which is really, really wonderful. So on that theme, we're going to hear from Joe Kim, and he's going to talk about a song that he uses. He alluded to it a little earlier when talking about how music can facilitate verbalizations. So Joe, what song are you going to play for us, and tell us why you would use this song?
Well, I was thinking about doing How Much Is That Doggy in the Window. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Let's do it.
But the reason I choose this one is because, number one, it's a very silly song. It's not a song that, you know, you would expect in a music therapy setting. But it's one of those songs that everybody's familiar with, and as soon as they hear it, they know exactly
We can bark, right?
They know exactly what to expect.
All right.
They know that they need to bark. So I always start off by saying, so what kind of sound does a dog make? And usually everyone in the room will
Woof,
bark
woof.
and give some kind of
sound
interpretation of what a dog sounds like. So I would tell them, well, I'm gonna need your help on this song. So when you know to come in, give me your best bark.
All right, we can do this.
Sounds good.
How much is that doggy in the window? The one with the waggly tail. How much is that doggy in the window?
Woof, woof.
I do hope that doggy's for sale. I must take a trip to California and leave my poor sweetheart alone. If Bree has a dog, she won't be lonesome. And my doggy will have a good home. Here we go. How much is that doggy in the window?
Woof, woof.
The one with the waggly tail.
Woof, woof.
How much is that doggy in the window? I do hope that doggy's for sale.
Beautiful.
Go, Joe.
And a nice transition from last week's show, which was all about dogs.
Exactly.
Very
That's why I
good.
picked it.
Thank you. So, you know, I can't imagine that when you're asking these questions and you start this song that anyone is just sitting there not smiling
Right.
during
No,
this, right?
it-
If you're being asked to bark, you're going to be smiling, I'm guessing.
Exactly. And even if you're nonverbal, or, you know, the patient or the resident is nonverbal and is not very responsive to the music, usually as soon as I start singing this song and you hear people barking, their faces kind of light up and their eyes open a little bit more. So if you're not totally engaged and you're not barking along and singing along, at least what it does is it kind of gets your attention. And that it's a great starter for sessions, especially in rooms where, you know, they might not be as engaged or not as excited to participate. It's a great way to start. So.
It sounds like it'd be a really good icebreaker.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and maybe, again, in a facility situation where there's new people coming all the time, you're introducing new individuals to the group. I think that's a very fun idea.
Yes.
Can I ask Joe a quick
You
question?
sure can.
All right, Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who had the better wolf? Was it Bree? Or no, you don't have. Go ahead. You don't have to answer.
Is it? Let's make a deal. Does somebody get a grand prize? Faces. I would have tried harder.
Well, as my employer, I'd have to say, Rick.
Oh,
Good answer.
good answer. Good answer.
Very funny. So in our last couple minutes here, Doug, I want to give you a chance to kind of give us an example of how you might set up a song. I know we're going to do it a little different tonight. Usually you'll play a specific artist when you're introducing a song, and Joe and I are going to be your artist tonight. But how might you introduce the song as you're doing a little bit of a trivia as part of your game?
Sure. The song that we're going to go ahead and play is obviously, or you're going to play and sing, is New York, New York. And so the two of you are the artists. But one of the things that I would do, you know, for instance, during my game, is the person who made it famous happened to be Frank Sinatra. Now, so therefore, I could play that song, but I kind of would like to challenge the people a little bit. So I'll play the original version, and that happened to be by, well, I don't tell them, but I have them listen to the song, and I'm wanting them to figure out who it is. And if they don't get it, of course, I give them the answer. But Frank Sinatra heard this person sing New York, New York, and it was in the movie New York, New York in 1977. And he decided to re-record it in 1979, and he's the one who really made it famous. But the person who actually wrote it, who sang it first, happened to be none other than Liza Minnelli.
Very good. We're going to do our best Liza
Sounds good.
impressions for you.
Let's do it. And I'm not going to do any wolfing. I'm not going to do any wolfing or barking, okay? All right.
And please feel free to sing along if you know it.
Oh, no.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want listeners or not?
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it.
Yeah.
New York, New York.
Come on, give me a little more.
I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps and find I'm king of the hill.
Hey, number one.
Top of the heap.
It's coming.
These little town blues.
These little town blues
are melting away.
are melting away.
I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
All right. And you didn't hear any barking from me either, all
No,
right?
just like Frankie and Liza would have done, right? Absolutely.
Great job.
Thank you so
New
much.
York, New York.
That's right. Thank you both so much for coming on tonight, showing a wide range of the different ways that we can reach seniors through music. I love it. Again, special thank you to both Doug and Jim, Doug and Joe. I don't know who Jim is. If you have any questions for us,
Thank you,
want to
Bree.
reach out, please do reach out on social media. We will see you next week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Palm Beach Music Therapy Connections. We hope you enjoyed today's program and discovered new ways to bring music, art, and dance into your home or workplace. Please find a copy of today's show at pbmti.com. If you have any questions for our guest or myself, please email me at Bree, that's BREE, at pbmti.com, or call the Palm Beach Music Therapy Institute at 561-747-9944. Tune back in next week for an all-new live show. See you then.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily